The world of SEO is moving fast, and few voices have been around long enough to help make sense of both where we came from and where we're heading. That's exactly why I sat down with Duane Forrester on Clarity Digital Pod. Duane is someone who doesn't need much of an introduction in the SEO industry, but for those new to the game, he's the guy who helped launch Bing Webmaster Tools while at Microsoft, was part of the founding team behind schema.org, held leadership roles at Bruce Clay Inc., Yext, and now runs Unbound Answers and the Duane Forrester Decodes Substack, which dives deep into AI, LLMs, and the future of trust and digital experience. In this episode, we got deep into the realities of AI, how it's reshaping SEO, and what real enterprise SEOs need to be thinking about now, not 5 years from now. All right, welcome, Duane. How you doing today?
I am doing awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. I was finally able to get hold of you and invite you to our little podcast. Everybody should know you. By now, you're an important person in the SEO industry, but if you don't mind introducing yourself, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the industry for a while, just a voice among many. But for those who have not encountered my writings and my background yet, Duane Forrester, I run unboundanswers.com. I've authored a couple of books with McGraw-Hill on conversion optimization and monetization with websites. Those are old, so don't worry about those too much. But I do operate the Duane Forrester Decodes Substack right now, and that is very current, talking about AI, talking about search, talking about building trust with the LLMs and so on. Worked at Microsoft for a decade, built and launched Webmaster Tools, was on the team that launched schema.org, SEO at MSN. I helped run Bruce Clay Incorporated for a while, was pre-IPO at Yext, and was there for 7.5 years. And I spent some time kicking around the industry and learning some things, and I'm not afraid to share.
Amazing. I first met you in 2009, where you were working for Microsoft, and that was in Seattle, SMX Advanced. And ever since I've been following you, and I follow your Substack right now. Great content. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your Substack?
Yeah. So it's funny. For years, everyone's been raving about Substack and Medium and being able to monetize and all that kind of thing. I've always, even back when I was with Microsoft, I ran the Bing blog, and I've always been about just give away the knowledge, right? Help people be better, do better. And that helps everyone. And it was a great ethos when I was running Bing Webmaster Tools, free data, like that kind of stuff. It all just worked well. However, what I learned over 20 plus years in the industry is the more I share, the more engagement you tend to get. And that sounds like a fairly straightforward comment, but that engagement you get turns out to be really valuable. And this Substack was a situation where I had time on my hands. So I started diving deep into AI. I started learning. I took classes. I don't know how many certification things that I went through, watched videos, followed everybody. Essentially just started down that path. And then eventually that led to, I won't lie, I run my own set of tools. They're all proprietary and internal. I've been building on Supabase and Pinecone and working with embeddings and vector alignments and all of the back-end fun stuff. I think it's fun because I geek out on this. And it takes me back to the beginnings of the SEO industry where we're trying to build tools. We're trying to extract information and knowledge. And big difference now is I get to tap into APIs everywhere and get information. So no mystery on vector alignments and embeddings, right? Just literally plug an API into a vector database, hit go, and then you get back the embeddings. And now you can do scoring and line those things up. And so it's been it's been almost 2 years now, digging in, learning. And along the way, I realized that all the content that I consumed as an SEO during that time was not talking about any of this. And it was pretty obvious to me that some things were different and they're going to lead to change, not least of which is consumer behavior and adoption of things like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and whatnot. And so it's been fascinating to watch the industry talk about these things and where the focus is. And it's been very fulfilling for me personally to dive deep on the technologies and the implementations of the technologies and apply those concepts to what we do in SEO and look at how it impacts that. And then I write about it, and that's what the Substack is. It's me uncovering stuff and thinking it through and applying an SEO's mindset to it, and then saying, okay, how should an SEO look at this? And biggest takeaway so far, SEOs, and I'm generalizing here because there are a bunch of SEOs that do need to fear this. But if you're a professional SEO and you know what you're doing, you don't need to fear AI and what's going on right now. There's a clear path through this for your skill set. The people who are faking it and using ChatGPT to answer all the questions in the background, yeah, that is a lifespan, and it's pretty short.
Wow, that was amazing. We discussed a lot of, you brought up a lot of topics there, and I want to break them down. One of the things you mentioned about going back to school, taking some AI courses. I took some this summer. I went on Coursera because I like to learn things academically. So I just signed up for a bunch of courses on Coursera. I wanted to learn how ML works, machine learning works, how AI works from fundamentally. I have a computer science background, so I had an AI 101 class 20 years ago. I needed to relearn, and then I learned about Gen AI and how it works. And the more I learned, the less I feared AI, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that was exactly my arc, right? Where on the other side of it, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this isn't something to fear. This is literally something, I hate to put it this way, but it's not something to fear, it's something to exploit. And what I mean is you need to develop the skills to utilize it because it's a tool like any other. It's sitting out there waiting for you to do things with it. And you can. Like I spoke this week at LA Tech Week here, and the room was full of VCs, startup founders, like people who were trying to make a business in this space. And it was shocking to me how when I asked, hey, do you all use AI? Everybody was like, yeah, everybody put their hands up, that kind of thing. And there was maybe 100 people there. And then I started asking like deeper, right? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Do you have this? Do you create grounding documents and create a project and do all your work in the project with the grounding documents? Do you force the AI to reference the grounding documents only? So when it gives you answers, it lessens the hallucination that can happen because you did your work to corral it. And the hands just kept going down in the room. And it was fewer and fewer people. And I'm like, it's kind of left with the idea that people think that these platforms are like, they're like a magic solution. I'm going to tell you to go do something and you're going to magically go do it close to perfect and give it back to me. And then I'll take it the final 2%. And let me tell you, as somebody who pays for Claude Max and like the high-end ChatGPT and all this stuff, like those CEOs walk out on stage and tell us how it's a PhD in your pocket. These are the best coders ever to exist and whatnot. I can tell you that's horse feathers. That is very much marketing speak because every one of these systems have limits. It's easy to hit the limits if you're diving deep and doing things. It's like you have to be, and I believe this is a skill set that is not, you have to actually go get some training on. Thankfully for me, I learned this at Microsoft. I got trained. It's product management and project management. Those two things are because you literally have to manage the product that is your AI.
Yeah.
And you have to be on top of the project for what is essentially a brilliant but idiotic co-partner and yourself. Like capable of brilliance, but you really have to corral it. Left to its own devices, this stuff gets lazy. It doesn't reference things. It guesses at file names. It gives you URLs that don't exist, like all of that. And so I think these skills are glossed over. I think most SEOs today fancy themselves as great product managers and great project managers. And they confuse being busy and having to do a bunch of things with like actual project management. And let me tell you, like actual project management takes over your life. And it's not the same as just being busy and trying to multitask. That's not it.
No, I agree. I think the key, the SEO, good SEO enterprise, I'm talking about enterprise experts, the good ones versus the average ones is the one with the better project management skills and product management skills as well, because you want to also understand the product that you're optimizing for, right? We're not always optimizing a website. We're optimizing a website that represents a product. And I think to that extent, I've always been very involved as much as I could, as much as the client could allow me to. Some clients don't allow you to get too much in the weeds.
Oh, yeah. But I think this is a really important thing, though, right? Because when you're in that enterprise situation, you're the anointed expert and everyone comes to you for advice on SEO. The problem is that in a lot of cases, they will go build their product without your input, then come to you to essentially put the icing on their cake. And you're sitting there going, this could have been so much more delicious had you take me to the store shopping for the ingredients, like right there. And the problem is, in a lot of instances, there is a hierarchy that is reinforced in enterprise across pretty much the world at this point. And stay in your swim lane. There's a lot of that. But there's also a lot of credit. Yeah. So this is my product. I will grow it and build it, and it will be successful because of me. And I won't include others because then I have to share. Sure. And I think that there's some ego/shame attached at that level in a lot of places. And frankly, I don't get that, right? I believe that if you're operating at 100% and you're doing your maximum and you're contributing your best, that all comes forward in whatever the final accounting is. At the end of the year, somebody pats you on the back, somebody recognizes you, you get a promotion, you get a raise, whatever is on the line. I believe that comes out when you do your best. It may not be your project, but if you're tasked with supporting it, as is the case with pretty much every enterprise SEO, you would never try to claim credit for that product. Yeah. That's not, you're like the 3M, right? If I can dredge up that old ad, we don't make the products you use, we make the products you use better. They're in the background. Nobody pays attention to that. And I think that right now we are looking at the inflection point with our industry where literally SEOs have an opportunity to reinvent themselves and the work they do. And I think that's incredibly important that people understand it and take action with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And actually, I was speaking at a client request. I was speaking with a rep from Bright Edge yesterday. I've been using their platform off and on since 2014. Bright Edge certified. I don't recommend it for all clients, but this particular client wanted me to look into the platform. And one thing the rep brought up I thought it was pretty interesting was that AI has increased demands for search. More people are searching now. So and they said I have some data to back it up. So I don't know if she was being in the sales mode, trying to promote the product, or if she was actually telling speaking from the data. But I do tell you one thing though, because Google user experience was, you have to go on your phone and type something in. Yeah. I search a lot more on my Perplexity app. Morning when I go for a walk, I speak with it. I ask my questions, whatever I need. So I think I want to say at least I'm searching more, but the way I'm searching has changed. So that kind of is a preface about how AI is changing search. And that's what you write about in your Substack.
Yeah, look, I think that behavior is changing. Yeah. I think if you want to look at raw numbers right now, it's very clear that from a raw number perspective, if you want to look at who's sending traffic to you, look, dude, it ain't ChatGPT, okay? It's still Google, right? Yes. And then as impressive as ChatGPT is, as cool as it is, even Bing search trumps them by 5x for contribution, right? So we're still at that early stage, okay? And I talked about this last week on the Substack, where 2026 is going to be an inflection point because there's an awful lot of enterprises that are leaning into their own LLMs and their own agents. And I want to clarify something, okay? I am not an agent-loving, conceptual, agents are like the coolest thing ever and blah, blah. No. The agents we have today suck. They do as much or more than the agent in an area where I have knowledge and I can get it done faster. So now, do they hold promise? Conceptually, could we get, yes, with a number of things happening in the background and things like more memory, more persistence of memory, like these kinds of things, yes, you can actually get a good agent experience. Ta-da! This is what enterprise is investing in the next 8 months or so. So what we're going to find is we're going to find Agentforce, we're going to find Joule over at SAP. These agents that belong to these large enterprises are going to be the first touch discovery space for every employee within their company. So whether those employees like or use Gemini, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Copilot, doesn't matter. They are going to get exposure in this area. They are going to see how those decisions get made. And there's two things that are going to happen. One, if you are one of the just shy of 1 billion daily active users not using ChatGPT, you will start wanting to use one of these because you will use it at work. You will see what it does for helping you make decisions, helping you move something forward. And you'll say, oh, I want to use something like that in everyday life. The other side to this is if you're a business and you're not in the training data that those individual models have, then you will not be the answer when somebody at SAP asks on behalf of a client for the best certifiable accounting software. What is it today for 2026? If you're not in that training data, you're not coming back as the answer, which kind of leads me back around to your AI is driving more search, because here's what's happening. I saw a stat this morning that said something like, is it 3 in 10 or 3 in 7 or something questions asked on ChatGPT result in a live web search.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think this is where we start to have to dive a little deeper on the data, right? Where we now have to look at things like, why are my impressions up, but my click-throughs are not? Well, this is why.
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT, I'll just pick on ChatGPT, it's spinning up more live web search. And you're appearing in those answer sets that are handed back to the LLM, but the LLM combs through it and decides, oh, it's Al, not Duane. I'll take that one as the answer, and off you go. So I get the impression, even though that impression was never in front of a human being. Like, it's false data. And yet it's actually true data. It's just not data that's beneficial to you, right? In fact, if anything is predicated on click-through rates, if your click-through rate is balanced on impressions versus clicks, your click-through rate just tanked immediately. It looks really bad. I actually don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way it is now. It's like telling somebody your score is a percentage or your score is 1. Does it really matter when I tell you it's a 0.2 or a 20%? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It just looks different. And so I'm not terrifically worried. I don't necessarily believe that, anybody, let me be crystal clear about this. Nobody has access to the data from these platforms. Full stop. It's just not like, that's not the case. And anybody who's claiming that they have data from those platforms, no, there are limited ways to get that. One, you got to use the API, which comes with its own built-in limit.
I use the API a lot, but how many able to get the data?
Them all. There's built-in limits. You are not doing anything at scale. Like the scale that enterprises used to. I track 10,000 words and I track them twice a day and tell me my rankings. You are not getting that scale out of these companies. And there's no need to, because quite frankly, as anyone who's used one of these services knows, if I go in and ask a question, and then I come back 5 minutes later and I ask the identical question, I will probably get a different answer the second time.
Yeah.
The answer's close. Like, it'll be aligned in the same, but the examples might be different. The citations and links might be different. And that's not necessarily because of a personalization, right? Some of it is. Some of it is, oh, I didn't click on number 1. I came back, so don't serve number 1 again. It didn't engage the person. Serve number 2, and then there you go. So there is that level of personalization that is available to the platforms for decision making. But there's also, well, they've got 800 million daily active users right now, most of that in the United States. So if you're in the United States and you're doing a query that aligns up with somebody else's query in the same topic, there's a really good chance that other people's actions have influenced what the answer is, even if it was only 1 minute between you going in and doing this. Exact same thing happens on Google, right? Like, we just don't talk about it anymore because it's old news. It's just personalization, and we're all over that. But this is a different scenario because it's really hard. You don't like in Google, you would have a CEO who would go look up the brand name and they would be ranked number 1 and they'd be like, oh, my team is crushing it. And they wouldn't have any clue that you were going to rank number 1 for your brand anyhow. Sure. But then they'd turn around and they'd go, I don't know, blue bomber jacket. And why don't we rank number 1 for that? It's our best selling product. It's what we make the most money on. We need to rank number 1 for it. Why don't we rank number 1? We're at number 5. We need to be number 1. There was this implicit march to the top mentality. And now if that CEO turns to his CMO and asks them for an opinion on something, and then turns to the CTO and asks them for an opinion on something, and then goes to the CFO and asks for a third opinion, he'll probably or she will probably get 3 different opinions.
Yes.
That's the world of getting answers now.
Yeah.
It's not a stack where somebody just gets to the top and it's easier for the platform to leave them there than it is to replace them. It's infinitely easy for these new systems to bring something new to the mix. Because again, if you go back and you spend the time and you learn about how these systems operate, the concept of the embedding, and when you look at the scoring, you suddenly realize it's like the 7th digit to the right of the decimal changes, and that's what's helping determine whether you are a part of the answer or not.
Yeah.
It's like that fine. And depending, again, if you look at the big 4, as I think of them, I think of Claude, I think of ChatGPT, I think of Perplexity, I think of Gemini. I don't think of Copilot because Copilot and ChatGPT to me are like the same. Right?
Yeah,
So I consider both of those as one here. And the biggest difference here is that the weightings of each of their models will be tuned differently. You would do SEO work for Google, it would work in Bing. If you did something for Bing, it worked in Google. So it was super easy. Made it super easy for me when I walked on stage because people would be like, what can I do to rank higher? And I'm like, let's repeat the same stuff that everybody else is doing. And here you go. And the differentiator was if you did it better than somebody, you got more out of it. And like a bunch of other factors, right? Like EEAT alignment and your trust, your authority, links, like all of that. And now it's each one of these platforms has a different weighting and they will never share what those are. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
You can, if you want to really dive deep on this or your IT team is disposed to putting a whole bunch of time into it, you can go ahead and build yourself your own LLM answer engine, and you can take off-the-shelf weighting from companies like Elasticsearch with the AI-powered search that they have, and they will show you, because you're controlling it, they will show you what the baseline weightings look like, and essentially give you sliders that you fine-tune, like 0.001 in this direction, 0.002 in that direction, and suddenly your answers are more empathic or you're more moral in your answers. And then if you turn them the other way, it could be more commercial intent that starts to show up. And you can do all of that, but that's a lot of time invested to still be guessing at what the actual model weights are. Because again, you won't know what they are.
Yeah. No, you brought up a lot of good points. And I want to correct me if I'm wrong, is that I think a lot of SEOs are so much set in their own ways of following Google signals, latest core update changes, and latest just general updates, and they're chasing rankings, things like that, and they don't really necessarily understand how much different the AI and LLMs are. And here you don't. This is, I keep mentioning this on my even previous podcast, is that one of the courses I took was as an extension course at MIT, and the MIT instructor said AI is a statistical lottery, and I was just like, that was just like light.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, like
100%.
That just everything just fell into pieces. I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. And because there's been cases where I've searched for something using Perplexity, I've got different answers, same exact prompt. And I'm like, okay, this is all statistics right now. And of course, there's the machine learning and training models and all as if and else statements or whatever. But there's a good portion of statistical modeling that's happening here. And if you're doing things like how we used to do, or we do with classic SEO, chase signals, rankings, stuff like that, you're going to go crazy and you're not going to get the results you need.
Look, to me, this is one of the most fascinating areas, okay? We're dealing with the psyche of an SEO, the psychology of who we all are as successful people or people who want to be successful. I will tell you this, and I don't believe that age is a factor here, but I do believe that experience is a factor.
Sure.
You and I talked about this when we were prepping, right? We were talking about how it feels like the Wild West all over again.
It is, yeah.
And that's because it actually is. We're back to a point where we have to go witness something happen, put that in an Excel spreadsheet, and then check it again next week to see if there's a delta forming and what that might mean.
Yeah.
Now, look, that if you've been doing SEO for, I'm going to put numbers on this. These numbers they're arbitrary. They're not real, okay? Just for example, if for 5 years, you have probably more than enough information to be a professional SEO. You have access to everything. It's all out there for you. You know how to learn it. You've got a network, got connections to people. You can ask questions, get answers. You can do the right work, all of that. What you can't do with that 5 years of experience is understand what it's like to be standing here with access to no tools and no data and say, I still have to figure out what matters. What's the lever? What's the dial? That's where we all started 20 plus years ago. We were in the dark. We didn't know there were levers and dials. We literally stumbled around and someone said, this feels like a dial. What happens when I turn it? And there was a glow off in the corner when you turned it. Like, we felt our way forward. And that feeling is happening again today, and everyone is experiencing it. The difference is, if you have the experience, you recognize what's happening and you know that you have to start from scratch. Yeah. And so you're like, okay, what I'm not going to do is like waste time chasing a bunch of things when I know I just have to roll up my sleeves and do the work myself manually. At the same time, we have a relatively mature tools market where we've reached a static balance with the search engines. They'll give us data. They know we use it. They'll answer questions. We've done our own research. There have been some leaks. We've got some paperwork. We figured some things out. Like, the best practices of SEO are really well defined at this point. So you can come in and be a high functioning SEO without years of experience if you learn the theories. AI is this weird mix of, it is a statistical lottery in terms of the answer that comes back, but it's also far more accessible than anything we had access to in early SEO, even 10 years ago, because I was never able. Okay, I have to take myself into this because I was able. I worked inside a search engine. I literally worked with the core search team. So I could go ask a question, get an answer, and understand things. But generally speaking, as an SEO, nobody had that access. Nobody could do that. And so now you can just ask ChatGPT to build you a training program, a curriculum that explains to you as a visual learner how this is all impacted and what you need to do to align properly. You can do that. And over a weekend, you can get a grounding in the basic concepts. And that's never existed before. And yet, I watch SEOs all the time. They're like, oh, there's been a big Google update. I got to focus on this. And I'm like, yes, you do, because they still send the majority of your traffic here. But I will say this. If you're being affected by Google updates at this stage of your company's evolution, I think maybe you need to go back to the basics of SEO, because you clearly haven't gotten that done properly.
Right.
Because if you have, you're not being impacted by these things, and therefore you are free to focus on this. When I talk about this, what I tell people, it's like going from being in high school to attending university. That's what's happening with us right now.
Yeah.
And you're showing up in a new place. You've never been there before. You don't know where the cafeteria is. You don't know where to park. You don't know what the rules are. Oh my God, look at this. I don't have a class right now. I have a free period to wander around. You mean I don't go to school on Wednesdays because I have no classes? Like, it's a completely different environment when you step into university/AI.
Yeah.
High school, by the time you're leaving high school, you know everything there is to know about high school and about that one high school that you were in. And that's what SEO and traditional search is. It's one high school that everybody is in. Everybody knows every hallway. They know every classroom. They know every teacher. They know what everybody drives. They know where everybody parks. They know every habit. They know all of it. When you get to university, it's a whole different world.
Yeah, I blame that on check. Sorry, I lost the term. The check mark SEO. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
I blame that on that. I'm like, oh God, like those are the guys that are going to really suffer, because it's not about
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Because look, you've read my stuff.
Yeah,
I try as much as I can to be prescriptive and give people, here's a framework. But most of what I'm trying to do is get people to think a certain way. Because if I can get you to think a certain way, then you can adapt the knowledge you have and then continually learn, because that's the core of what we're entering into, right? This is, look, if you're an old school SEO and you're burnt out and you're tired and
time to retire.
Right? Yeah, it definitely is time to retire.
Yeah.
Because the only other option you have is grab a couple of gears lower and start accelerating again.
I agree with you. Look, I think part of that is to be blamed on this, and I like the tool. I use it to this day. The tools like SEMrush or whatever, checklist. That's the word I was looking for. They groomed us to be checklist SEO people. Oh, you need missing title tag, missing meta description, blah blah blah. But that's just not. It's not about that anymore.
But that made sense. How that made sense when we had all the best practices and we all agreed, and they were largely static, and you could just settle in and do the work, and it made complete sense for that. But that's not where we're at now. And it's really hard, right? Like I had somebody last week send around a press release. I got it in my inbox, and they were so proud that they built a query fanout tool for their tool set. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, first off, query fanout, you should have been doing it 10 years ago, because people like me and many others were telling people, like, you need to look at intent. You need to use people also asked and answer the people and these types of tools that we're literally doing query fanout before we use the phrase query fanout. And if you weren't doing that, if you were just like pinpoint keyword research and then going down and creating like the top 10 lists and this URL and whatnot, okay, you're going to struggle moving forward. It's a new world. Anyhow, my main point was I sat down last week and built a query fanout tool in 27 minutes. So like, it's not, and I'm not bragging about that, okay? It's literally connecting some dots. If you have the infrastructure in place. That's the part. You have to have the infrastructure in place. And then you connect the dots and you give it an input and it gives you an output. It's very straightforward.
What do you use? I use Claude, and sometimes it chokes on me. Do you use Claude?
I have all four, because when I want to do like contribution or attribution analysis, I want to ping all four with the same question and then scan all of the API responses to come back and say, hey, that's a really important phrase for you. And guess what? You don't show up in any of the answers. So you should probably do something about your content, about your chunking, about your alignment, about your facts, about your linking, like whatever. But to me, it's like, these are new things. And what I constantly see is SEOs going, oh, query fanout, that's just keyword research. And funny thing happens when you allow yourself to react that way. You will train yourself to dismiss the difference, because what you're seeking to do is understand, and it's easier to lower the bar to your level of understanding than it is for you to learn something new. And this is not like a you, Al thing, right? This is the human mind at work. The human brain is lazy, right? It wants to burn fewer calories for every task. And so it's easier for me to cognitively tell myself, oh, it's just fill in the blank with something I already know, so I can attribute those two things and I don't have to do any work. But when I say, oh no, here's the difference, and here's what that means, and I extend that out to the work I have to do, the workflow, the amount of time that workflow takes, the content creation I now have to do, the idea of creating thematic groupings, because when you do query fanout, it's like, give me one question, I'll give you 100 that are related, but those 100 that are related literally fan out. So the farther you get, the less related they are. And you do reach a point where you want to cut that down, because one piece of content can answer these 10 versions of the question. But then the next piece of content has to do the next 10 of those things, or whatever the numbers are. And if you don't understand that because you shortcut your own mind by saying, oh, it's just keyword research, you know what? I don't know what to say. A year from now, 2 years from now, we're all going to get together at some conference, and it's going to be a vastly different group of faces sitting in that audience and standing on that stage. And I don't know what to say. I will say this, just to be completely transparent. I may be completely wrong. I may, like, this whole thing may be nothing. It may go nowhere. It may be like voice search was. We all said voice was going to change the world, and it didn't. But I will say this. Zero click is coming. Zero click is here. It's having an impact. It's going to continue to have an impact. Voice is a part of that. You've got companies like Meta betting on wearable glasses with all of this embedded technology. You have generations of people who are okay with change. They're okay with using their phone less. And that behavior change is what drives everything we have to optimize for. So if you are still sitting down thinking Google's the only thing that matters, I'm here to tell you you're absolutely right, because as of today, they still send you the majority of your traffic. 2 years from now, that might be a very different world you're looking at. And you might be wondering, how do I show up on screens in automobiles? How do I show up in CarPlay? How do I show up in voice that's going on. All of these things are zero click. And I can tell you, if you just watch what OpenAI is doing, they're creating an ecosystem across a variety of different areas. And it's all about consumer engagement. All about consumer engagement. If Apple steps forward and really gets their house in order, Apple could crush everyone in search just by virtue of owning the interface. They own the phone. That's it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think a lot of it has to do with adoption of the technology. We are having a generational gap right now. Like my mom, who they just use Google, and then even my wife, who is my age, but she's a nurse, she's not techie, so she was still Googling stuff, and I'm like, hey, why don't you use like ChatGPT or Perplexity or something? And so I think that we have this leapfrog where like a group of people are going to retire, and then all of a sudden the newer generation is going to use this stuff more. I tell you that though, I was just talking at an SEO PPC here in San Diego. I attended a lot of sessions too. The data comes that a lot of people don't even use search anymore because Facebook has llama. Sorry, the garden is here. If there's a lot of voice here,
that's okay.
And then I was at home the other day, and I just told Alexa to order more coffee. Like I don't have to go on a website.
And
totally. It just did it for me. And I think we're entering that era. Another thing I was going to say is that my office is in Irvine. I live in Lake Forest, city next to it. And Irvine has a lot of cool coffee shops. I'm wondering if we have non-chain coffee shops. So I went to Perplexity. I'm like, give me a list of top 5 non-chain coffee shops. It gave me a 5 in Lake Forest. So it gave me like 5 of them or whatever. And then I asked him, like, how did you rate like these? Why did you give me these as opposed to other ones? And he told me it was based on reviews. And I'm like, oh wow, which reviews? It said Yelp, the Google listings, and there was another coffee review site. I'm like, and then this is the conversation that's happening between me and Perplexity. Was their website any of the factors? It said, no, not for this one. And then actually one of the top 5 didn't have a website. And this is the world we're entering today.
Al, I talked about this like a month ago, right? Yeah. Where we talked about, I did an article on agents are the future, not websites, and what that looks like. It sounds a little sensational as a headline, but like it's sometimes hard to write a headline that like captures what you're talking about without it coming across as, oh, here we go. I firmly am not a believer in the beginning or ending of anything. I believe in transitions. And I had the oil change in my truck yesterday, and the shuttle was driving me back from the dealership. There's 6 of us in the vehicle. We're having a conversation, and I asked if anybody uses any of the AIs, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever. Not a single person in the vehicle used them. And they're like, can you trust it? And I'm like, absolutely. And they're like, do you use it? And I'm like, I use all of them. Yeah. I use them to make decisions. I use them to find information. I use them to answer questions. They're like, what? How do you use it? And I said, I took a photo of a leaf on my orange tree and I asked ChatGPT, what am I looking at? And it said, that is a Washington navel orange tree. And you're looking at a parasite in the new growth leaf that is fairly common. And it doesn't affect strong, robust leaves, but it only goes after the new leaves. So trim them back and let the tree grow again. And then they're like, it'll do that? And I'm like, instantly. And now I know what to do. I have a marker on my calendar in March. Yeah. I have to go trim the tree in March because you have to do it in the winter time. Yeah. And then I have to give it its growth supplements or the fertilizer or whatever. But normally I'd have to call someone, have them come to my house. They would tell me what it is. I would have to pay them for that. They would want to sell me a service and all of that. And I said, and this is something I can do with a pair of scissors in 4 months if I just put it on my calendar. And there you go. And then by the time we got the second to last person dropped off, 2 people in the truck had actually downloaded ChatGPT and had started to play around with it. And I'm like, we're at that point. You'd said it. It's an inflection point, and consumers are using it. It's going to become extremely mainstream in 2026.
I believe so.
I think that there's still runway for SEOs to figure out, like, how am I using it? What am I using it for? What am I doing? I had somebody reach out to me yesterday and they were like, hey, we're adding a content creation feature to our tool set. We'd love you to take a look at it and tell us if you'd endorse it or whatever. And I'm like, screw that. Like, That's like the least useful thing you can do right now. In fact, when I talk with a client and they're like, can you do content creation? I'm like, hell no. I am not the person to do content creation, not because I'm lazy, not because I don't write, but because I don't know your product the way your people do. Your product manager needs to write about your product because they're the single closest person to it. And they have access to consumer information, to focus group information. They have access to all of this stuff related to your product and how people use it and the problems it solves. And those are the people who should be leading the writing of your content. Oh, they don't have time. That's why they use AI. They give it the guidelines, and then AI gives you the quick and dirty 200 words for it. Like, you don't even need to be creative. You just give it bullet points, and it'll fill in the blanks pretty well for you. But then you have to edit it. Then you have to decide that it's acceptable. Then you have to go and publish it. And whether it performs or not, you have to own it. So for all of these reasons, I won't do that for you, because my way of doing that for you is to give it to an AI, take the output and give it to you. And then I tell you, you have to edit this, and you will skip the editing part in favor of speed to market.
Sure.
And if it's wrong, it hurts you. So no, like just like that's an area still requires human in the loop. No question at all.
I don't know why they want to create all these tools for content creation. All you need to do is a good prompt and what he said, like a good brief. Like one of the earlier, I told you I was like back to school for me. One of the courses I took in Coursera was prompt engineering. That completely changed my game. I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah. Dude, look, just between you and me, okay? Don't share this with anybody else, right? Just between you and me. For every bit of work I do, whether it's in Claude or ChatGPT, I create a project, okay? Unless it's like a personal thing, I don't just ask a question in the wild with any of the systems. I create a project. And what I do on the back end, on my computer locally, is I create a folder for grounding around that project. And I create a Word document that holds everything I want in a prompt by way of direction and information related to it in that Word document. Sometimes these are 7-8 pages long, right? Yeah. And I will ask ChatGPT to create a list of things that matter in this area. And I'll take that list and I'll put it in the grounding document. And then I'll take that grounding document and I'll give it to Claude and it'll say, expand on this, and it'll expand on something. But I end up with this really deep field of related information to my topic. And then I add my experience, I add my ideas, my examples, all of this. And then when I start my very first prompt, I upload that document and I say to the system. I was going to
ask you, because you mentioned that earlier, and I'm like, how do you do it? Do you upload each time? Or
I upload at the beginning and I say, here are the grounding documents.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think one of these tools are missing is like a storage where you can actually.
Yeah, there are limits.
Yeah, saves. I'm already out of memory in ChatGPT. I gotta go clear some of them out.
Yeah, I run out of memory probably on a weekly basis, and it doesn't matter how much I tell it to not automatically save stuff it thinks it should save.
It will do it.
I still have to go through and clear it out. Claude's limit is you can only upload 100 documents, not including code. Okay, so I am constantly giving code to Claude and telling it, like, smoke test this code, find out what this is. Will this code do this that I'm attempting to accomplish? And then it'll come back and it gets like really assumptive. Because you gave me code, you must be a master level programmer. And it says things and you're like, whoa, I gave you the code, come back visually with the code and show me where I put what I have to put in. And then I'll go and make my edits and whatnot. I generally know what it is. But we're talking about code for a live website. So when I restart the front end server, it has an immediate impact. And I don't want to screw that up and be chasing it for hours. So be pedantic, but I give it all of that. And then what I do is, the other thing I do is partway through a project. So if you work in Claude or you work in ChatGPT, you can ask it how many tokens in the session you have left, and it'll tell you how many tokens, right? So usually at around like 50 to 75,000 tokens, again at 100,000, again at 150,000, I ask the system to pull the thread and tell me what work we have accomplished so far. And it creates this long list of everything that was worked on and the status of those things. And I take that and I add it to my Word document in my grounding file. And then when I start my next thread, because eventually you run out of tokens in a conversation, and incidentally, the closer you get to the bottom of that token pile, the stupider the system gets. It just behaves like an idiot. You'll know when that's happening. You'll feel it and you'll be like, whoa, I need to give more guidance to get a smaller ROI out of the responses. But when you go into your next conversation and you hand it this uber document, I have some grounding documents that are like 15, 20 pages deep. And when you hand that to the system and go, this is your North Star, this is what you ground on, this is the only document that matters to you, it gets maybe 70 to 80% of the way on the first response back to where you were in the other thread.
Yeah.
And I need Claude to have persistent memory across all conversations in a project.
I've noticed that too. Every time I upload a file that's too big, like the other day, I'm like, give me title tag, give me descriptions, because this is for an e-commerce site that they don't have that automated. And we're trying to help them automate that. I'm like, here's a list of, I need a list of title tag, meta description. It's a project. So already knows the rules, how to do it. And it says to break it down. I'm like, oh shit. So I basically, this is like and I don't like that.
I got so frustrated with ChatGPT that I started complaining to the customer support ET. And what I learned going through that process is there is a combination of specific words, displayed intent, and emotion that guides the bot to send information to the humans in customer support to give them a heads up about the thread it's working in. And twice now, I have had humans from ChatGPT reach out to me via email to respond to the conversation that I started with the bot online. And in both instances, I was told, you are what we consider a power user, and what you are doing is at the extreme edge of the capabilities.
Yeah.
And look, as a product guy from Microsoft, I know exactly what I'm being told, okay?
Yeah.
You're so far off at the edge of the bell curve, we're not going to do anything to help you. You're not the majority. You're not the 80% of people we need solved for. You're way off there in the half percentile. And that's problematic because when Sam Altman walks on stage and says, you've never met a better writer, it's like having a PhD in your pocket. And then I give it a 65,000 word manuscript for a book I'm writing, and it cannot scan the entire thing without completely losing the plot and just coming back saying, I don't know what to do with this. Okay, then it's not a very good writer. It's not a PhD in my pocket.
Yeah, you work with startups too, right? So these startups they're still in the funding, raising money mode. They're not public. OpenAI is not publicly traded. So
no, they're not public.
Yeah, so they're still raising money. They're still hyping things up.
Yeah.
And even worse than OpenAI is the other one the Claude. What's the name of the company?
So Anthropic.
Oh my God, those guys are like, they're driving us. Oh,
there's something. Look, there's something fundamentally different with these two companies, right? Anthropic leans more toward the moral, ethical side of AI.
Right.
And OpenAI has obviously leaned more in toward commerce and money. I don't know whether one's good or bad. I will say that I alternate between these two platforms when I'm doing work because
I use Gemini a lot than AI Lab.
Absolutely.
More impressed by Gemini recently.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think Gemini has maybe tighter limits overall. I haven't explored them fully, but I think overall you'll find there's tighter limits. But you'll also find that within Gemini, it's maybe a little more reliable and a little more straightforward because I will ask Gemini to do some things and it will just tell me, no, I don't do that. I can't do that. Here are the limits, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. Disappointing, but refreshing.
It doesn't try to make shut up. Yeah.
I lost an entire 4-hour evening going down a rabbit hole with ChatGPT in the end to find out that the core thesis I was working on was entirely unsupportable and fabricated.
Yeah. The fabrication is terrible. Like I deal with that a lot. It likes to agree with you, and I'm like, no. Don't agree with me. No,
absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's part of the prompt engineering. I think you got to do it at a micro level, right? I don't think you can.
You do. You have to micromanage
the whole thing. Yeah.
So this is a human issue, okay? As human beings, none of us like to be micromanaged, and we like to feel like we have agency. And
we got to micromanage AI.
You have to, even though what happens is you start thinking of these systems as if they are a collaborator, as if they are a partner, as if they are some version of a person, an intern or something. And what's really hard is a lot of times like holding them accountable in a very straightforward way to alter behavior and get what you want. because
I can't get rid of the
it is
end
micromanaging.
I can't get rid of it. One of my custom GPTs, my tone. I fed it
Yeah.
my tone. I'm like, this is Al Sefati's tone. It's no M
Yeah.
dashes, no emojis, and
Oh, yeah, forget it.
I still get M dashes. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
totally.
the heck?
Totally. I get with ChatGPT, I get
This is ChatGPT 5, right? The latest one.
I get the wrong thing in the answer to me correcting it. So I say no emoji and no M dash, and it says absolutely no emojis, no M dash. And there are emojis and M dashes in its response to me. And I'm just like, oh my God. Oh my God. I've had Claude curse at me twice in the last week.
No way.
So that's been fascinating. It's been supportive, but like I was working on something. I was trying to solve a problem on a site that I was building out. And I'm like, why is this like, we have a CSS problem. There was something somewhere in a CSS file that was overwriting something. So it didn't matter what we did to change it. Like the font size wouldn't change, the position wouldn't change. And we couldn't find it in all of the CSS docs on the server. And finally we found it after about 6 hours of working on it. Finally got it to work, right? And I was thrilled. I took the screenshots, uploaded them, was like, awesome, we crushed it. Now we're ready to move on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not kidding. I had to take photos of this, right? Its response was, holy shit, it worked. And I'm just like,
oh my God.
Okay, buddy, I kind of love you right now.
I know you're going over time, but I want to ask you one more question about SEO.
Yeah, man.
Classic SEO, we had backlinks. What is the off-page SEO now for the AI? What do we have to do?
So look, you got to build trust, okay?
PR? Yeah. Like what is that?
So here's the thing, okay? Backlinks were always a signal of trust, and then backlinks took a back seat. And then we have this EEAT framework now, and everybody gets the idea of authority and trust and what you have to do with that. All those things matter. A signal of trust or authority would also be structured data, schema, whatever you want to use, doesn't matter. These systems look for those cues, and they look for those cues at the source talking about you. They look at you as a source. They literally are looking at everything in 3 dimensions at one time to come to a conclusion about trust. And a lot of times it's not about the link pointed at you. They don't really give a shit about that, right? What they care about is the veracity of the source talking about another source. Right. Because if you're an a-hole and you recommend this other person, there's probably a good chance that other person's an a-hole as well. But if you're a really trustworthy person and you recommend someone, that may carry a bunch more weight. And so these systems are all about that, right? So now we find ourselves in a situation where the Holy Grail, and we use this example all the time, right? Was like, could I get a link in an article from CNN? Yeah. Right? Like that was the Holy Grail, right? It turns out for AI, the Holy Grail is just being mentioned. Yeah. That's it. It's all you need is just to be mentioned. So if you really want Holy Grails, take a look at the partnerships with the publishers that that OpenAI has. And with those partnerships, you want to look at those businesses, and that's where you want to get mentioned. So if you're choosing to help out a reporter and the reporter works for one of the entities that is owned by Ziff Davis, and those guys are in a partnership with OpenAI, then, that's probably going to get included in the training data set at OpenAI, which the flip side of that whole conversation is we can now poison training data sets against brands and categories and everything. If you are, I don't know, I'll say if you're Big Tent, you're that industry, you make tents. Yeah. You could actually put out 1,000 articles poisoning the world against RVs, just generally saying they're negative and talking about why they're negative and everything. And that becomes a training set in an LLM. And as the LLM is forming an answer and someone says, what's the best way to camp? Should I go ground tent or small trailer? It's going to come back and it's going to say, we should go ground tent because RVs are bad for blah, 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 blah. And we can actually do that now. In a year or so, in a year or so, what's going to happen is we're going to have what are called universal verifiers. The platforms are working on these things now. They will basically be a source of truth. Yeah. And so it's an LLM, fact checking an LLM, but the fact checker is so defined that it can't hallucinate. Yeah. And so it will only pass things that it verifies and validates through to the LLM that forms the answer. So the answer is more trustworthy. So the idea that it would look at the entire training set and the data coming through and say, oh, hang on a second, this is the 5th time today that I've seen that RVs are bad for whatever. What's the proof that they're bad? And then it does its logic and looks at everything and goes, okay, we can't say that. and then it doesn't pass that through. So there is a self-healing nature that is about to happen, but those things are still very much in the lab right now. They haven't seen the light of day, and we won't get an announcement. There won't be anything standalone. It will literally just be baked into it. Maybe
it won't be like a Google update, right? It will just happen.
GPT-6 or something will be like, oh, it's all about trustworthiness or whatever. But these things are coming, and
AI is going to get more expensive too as a result. I know someone who works Open AI. He said it's going to get more expensive.
I disagree, but let me qualify my disagreement here, okay? Yes. I think that the back end of AI will continue to get cheaper. I think for consumers, the price will continue to rise because every one of these companies wants to at some point reach profitability.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, right?
Because he said, and he's on the business side of OpenAI, he said that we're losing money even
hand over fist.
Premium.
Yeah, hand over fist. Yeah. Look, I firmly believe that Google is trying to understand how to make money on the AI experience. And until they do that, they have to keep search ads at a certain level. So they're trying to find that balance that doesn't erode search ad revenue for them, but gives consumers more exposure so they can build a better muscle on the AI side. But at some point, we reach a tipping point, and then the money starts flowing on that side of the equation. I outlined this in an article, actually, how to build an ad platform that is native to an LLM system. And it is very different than what you would do for traditional search, like very different. And that platform, I'm pretty sure someone is going to build. I know Google is looking at it. They were testing something that was aligned with the idea because I found it while I was doing my research. And it's a very interesting era because when that shift happens, you will be able to upload your business name. You'll be able to set your goals, like I want to sell more of X product. You will be able to give it your brand book and tell it, this is the envelope, stay within this. And it will do everything else. It will create the ad. It will match the cohort on the fly when it identifies it. And that cohort is going to be vastly different than what we're used to. It's not demographics or psychographics. It's literally intent in real time. It will create ads in the background with AI assets for you. And you will say things like, I want a middle-aged gentleman who has a goatee and glasses and slightly graying hair. That's my person in my ad. And it will go do it. Or you could tell it, do multivariate testing, A, B, C, D, and it'll create 4 of these. And there'll be 4 different personalities. They'll all say some version of the same script. The ads will go out. It'll play those ads 1,000,000 times each, decide who's the winner, and then put that across the rest of your campaign. And at the end of the month, you get a bill for $8,000. Everybody's hoping that you got the click-throughs and you got the conversions and it was worth your while on the campaign. It's a very different system. You will not be managing ads in that world, right? You will be managing inputs and intent alignment.
Maybe so I just more on creatives rather than.
This is also why I don't think that we net lose a lot of jobs. I think a lot of the work we're doing evolves and people do new work. Yeah. But if you're losing a job, it's because you refuse to grow. Yeah. That's my thinking.
I actually have a story. I have a client that fired their copywriter and then hire him back.
Absolutely.
It's happening.
Absolutely. But you know what, just to be fair, okay, look, we look at that and we want to cast a judgment. We want to say, oh, how could you be that way, blah, blah, blah. Look, all of us have to learn, right? We are all going to go through this curve. And when someone looks at a situation like this, they go, oh, there's opportunity here, right? I see opportunity here. I'm doing things that I think will allow me to take advantage of that opportunity. But my choices, I will only know if they were the right choices in hindsight after everything pans out. Maybe I'm going to be right. Maybe I'm going to be wrong. I don't know, but I feel like I'm on the right path. And I think that logic is what guides most people, even the person who says, I don't need the copywriter, I'll do AI. And then, wow, hang on a second. We need Sarah back. It's just the natural part of this. Anytime you get change like this at this scale, you're going to have churn. It's going to happen. And we went through this with SEO. Right? Where SEO came on the scene and businesses were like, we're all in on SEO. We're getting rid of traditional marketers. Yeah. And it's now, if you actually go into a real business today, they have a DTM team that has specific disciplines within marketing to do specific things. And that didn't exist 20 years ago. That was not how these things were done. So we'll get there. I'm confident we'll get there.
Duane, I know we can talk forever, but we've gone over time a little bit. I do want to conclude this with asking a couple of personal questions.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, when you're not being an awesome SEO expert, what are you doing? What are some of your hobbies?
I do three things. I do a fair bit of camping. If anybody wants to know what that's, I have a very sparsely maintained YouTube channel called Dirt Sandwich. That's where I do trip reports for my camping here in the mountains around California. I build guitars because that's a fun hobby. And recently I started building knives. I have the material. Look, building a guitar, building a knife, not particularly different here, right? It's a lot of woodworking, a little bit of metal smithing, not a big deal to me. I happen to have access between my own shop and a friend's shop to everything. So it's just fun, right? It doesn't matter what I'm building. What I want to do is create. That's my thing. And it's very different than left brain, right brain. It's we're sitting here talking about AI and about all these different things. And then sometimes you just want to go get messy and create something. And at the end of the day, have an object that you can look at and go, oh, that's real. That's tangible. I created this thing and there's a utility to it.
Yeah.
It's a very self-fulfilling thing. So that's what I do. I do write, obviously, but I write for business. That's the reality.
Cool. And another personal question, and this is weird. If you could be a superhero, which superhero would you be?
I would be Mr. Train. And here's why, okay? Everybody's played this game at some point. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now for a living, what would you want to do?
Yeah.
I would want to be a train engineer. I would want to be the guy at the front of the train for days at a time, traveling across the country, in the backcountry, photos, videos, seeing it all, and there's nobody around. I would love that. And today it's more important than ever because this is the lifeblood of our supply chain, is things like our rail lines. And so I'd want to be Mr. Train and making sure that everything everybody needed showed up where it was needed on time. That would be my superpower.
By the way, train vacations are like, if you could take him as opposed to flying somewhere, do that.
Dude, every time I go to Europe, I look for excuses to take trains. If I am in Germany at an event and I got to go to Paris, I'm taking the high-speed rail. Like I'm taking the train. It's a bit more work, but what an experience. What an experience. Amazing.
Yeah. Even from here to San Diego, I try to take the train. Yeah. Just especially by the coast, where it goes by the coast, the views.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you? Obviously, if you don't mind mentioning your website, your LinkedIn, all that stuff.
So look, you can track me down on the website is unboundanswers.com. The Substack is Duane Forrester Decodes. Obviously, if you just type Duane Forrester into a search engine, you'll find a bunch of links to me. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the socials. I'm easy to find. I made it easy to find me.
Cool. Well, Dan,
I did blur my house in Google Maps. So there's that.
Well, yeah, Google Maps. We love Google Maps. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to having you on again down the road. Maybe we can talk about more specific things like as AI progresses more. I think AI search, as you said, is the future, but we could be wrong. We'll see how it goes. Again, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And it was a pleasure having you.
This was awesome, Al. Thank you very much for having me on the show, man.
Of course. Take care. Bye-bye.